Hey everyone, Road Breach here, and today we're taking a look at Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach is the newest installment in the popular Five Nights at Freddy's series. The game was developed by Steelwheel Studios and published by Scott Games for PC, PS5, PS4, and an Xbox version just recently released. What originally started as a lowly indie horror game later grew into a highly successful franchise, with toys, books, and a movie in the works. It's impressive to see how far you can come when you accept critique on your work and turn it into something highly successful. It's people like Scott Cawthon that lead me to come up with this philosophy. If you take critique, you will reach your peak. That's what Scott did when he got criticism for his game Chipper & Sons Lumber Co. One thing I didn't stop to appreciate back then was the series' usage of pre-rendered visuals. The Five Nights at Freddy's series has some really good graphics thanks to its usage of a 2D game engine with assets that aren't rendered in real time like most games. So, you wouldn't need a super powerful piece of hardware to run most of these games. But with Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, this is the first time you actually get to explore the establishment the game takes place in. However, one thing I'm not too happy about is the fact that the game was released unfinished. This is something that's becoming a worrying trend with games nowadays. I know that we live in the age of patches and post-launch support, but if a game is not ready for release, I'm perfectly content with waiting until the game is ready for release. I may be impatient, but if you need more time to develop a game, then I'll wait while you make sure that it's finished. The game at launch had tons of different issues. Some characters had issues with animation, there was inconsistent lighting in some spots, the frame rate would chug like a train carrying Devastator if you turned on visual mode and walked into the main atrium, and much more. I believe the game was around 84 gigabytes at launch, and the first major patch was 3 gigabytes, but for reasons we'll get into later, of the 84 gigabytes the game's file size was comprised of, probably 17 gigabytes were actually used. But as of now, the game is 20 gigabytes. But with all of that out of the way, let's grab a slice and let's see what this game has to offer. The game starts off with this awesome pre-rendered cutscene of Freddy, Roxy, Chica, and Monty getting up on stage and rocking out for a crowd. This may just be the coolest thing I've ever seen in a Freddy's game thus far, and get a load of this music. This is straight up awesome. The only thing that kind of bugs me here is that Freddy's on the microphone, but he doesn't sing. Maybe he was going to sing before he shut down on stage, but we could have gotten somebody on the drums if he wasn't going to sing. Beyond that, the actual in-game graphics are pretty good. The game makes use of the Unreal 4 engine. I don't know the ins and outs of game design, so I don't know how hard it would have been to shift the development to the Unreal 5 engine. There were a few times when I noticed that some surfaces were using low resolution textures. There's also a lot of mirrors in this game, but they don't seem to reflect a lot of objects in front of them. However, if you look at the video settings and the options, you can switch between visual mode and performance mode, and the mirrors actually work in visual mode. But as the name implies, this mode favors visuals over the performance, and the frame rate of the game won't be as good. Even with the patch, I found some issues with character animations on the staff bots. A lot of the staff bots seem to have missing frames of animation, especially with the janitor staff bots. I also saw some visual oddities, like Freddy having spare arms and mirrors, Gregory having gray hair, and Gregory turning magenta in the Roxy Raceway bathroom mirror. How does stuff like this even happen? But I will give the game this. One small detail that they added to here was visible security cameras. Like I said, it's a small detail, but I appreciate it. One funny bit of world building that I like is the amount of Fazbear branded things this company uses. Generators, forklifts, and cleaner are just a couple of items that I noticed that had Fazbear company branding on them. This establishment even has showers. Another thing that I found really cool was the old Fazbear paraphernalia that you can find in Rockstar Row. You can find Mr. Cupcake and pieces of the old animatronics in these glass cases. And you can find cutouts of the Nightmare animatronics and Shadow Bonnie at the far end of the hall. There's also old posters of the original animatronics and the toy animatronics hung on the walls. They even took advantage of the PS5's power by adding ray tracing. And now the reflections help make this game look fantastic in some spots. This update also adds distance haze that helps beef up the atmosphere of this game. It's not as good of an atmosphere as the first game, but the visual overhaul with this new update helps enhance the experience. But the visuals aren't the only thing that helps create a nice atmosphere. The music and audio helps really bring up the entire presentation and make this game very aesthetically appealing. But this is a video game, so now we need to talk about the game mechanics. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach is a stealth game, and I think adapting the horror strategy game style into a stealth game is a pretty good idea, and it works fairly well here. The game gives you tools you need to make it from objective to objective. You're given a novelty Fazwatch to view security cameras to see if an animatronic or staff bot is close to your location. But even though the series is oftentimes more focused on 3 or 4 animatronics at once in a fairly small location, they obviously had to have more automatons to keep you on your toes. The staff bots have simple patrols that have blind spots that you can take advantage of to sneak by undetected, and when you crouch, you have a lower chance of being detected by the animatronics. When you crouch, this icon will change color to indicate whether you're safe and sound or in danger. When the icon is blue, you're safe. When the icon is yellow, you need to be more careful. And when the icon is red, run. Run! Run! If you get spotted by a staff bot, it'll sound off an alarm, which will summon one of the hostile animatronics to your location. But if you get detected, you can run and hide. But if you hide in a place that's within the line of sight of one of the animatronics, they won't be fooled and they'll get you. I appreciate that there's a sound cue that plays when you get spotted by an animatronic. It helps give you a head start so you can get away. You also have a stamina bar that only shows up when you sprint. I never really have an issue with user interfaces in video games. If the game has information that I need to know, like how my health is doing, or if my napalm belch is ready, or how much ammo I have, then be sure to give me that information. But if you have a good way of keeping the screen clean so I can see what I'm doing, like having a stamina bar that only shows up when I need it, then good on you. Just like most horror games, you get a flashlight to light up dark places like vents or poorly lit rooms. But instead of collecting batteries, you recharge the battery at these flashlight charging stations on the walls. I also appreciate that you're able to see the flashlight battery level by hitting up on the D-pad. In most Freddy's games, pretty much every animatronic wants to kill you, but here, Freddy's the only one that doesn't want to kill you on sight. You can even climb inside him and pilot him like this was Titanfall.
Transferring control to Gregory.
When you're inside Freddy, you can walk past animatronics and staff bots without a problem, and open doors that only Freddy can open. Freddy also has a built-in flashlight that's always on. You can even push a button to call him over to you. If Freddy was a battle mech of some sort, what kind of weapons do you think he'd have? As cool as it is piloting Freddy like a Gundam mobile suit, you can't just take him everywhere you go and avoid the stealth altogether for the whole game. Freddy has a battery that you need to manage, otherwise Freddy will eat you. Freddy can be recharged in these recharge stations, but they're very few and far between, which is a good incentive to use Freddy sparingly. You can also summon Freddy by entering a recharge station. There are also a couple of upgrades you can get for Freddy. Some of the upgrades can be found as collectibles in the Mega Pizzaplex, but the main ones are done by taking parts from the other animatronics. But we'll talk about that later though. One game mechanic that reminds me of Resident Evil 2 is the security clearance system. There are doors that you can't unlock without a certain level of security clearance, so you'll need to get an upgrade at these little dispensers found at security desks throughout the Pizzaplex. But there are some doors that need a specific pass to unlock. You need a photo pass to unlock Freddy's room, you need a party pass to get into Phaser Blast, you need a daycare pass to get into the daycare, obviously, and so on and so forth. Seeming less like a beefed up Dave & Buster's and more like a damn Umbrella Lab. There are many more mechanics that I haven't mentioned yet, but we'll get into those when we talk about the story. Which we're gonna do right frickin' now! Like I said, the game opens up with the gang rocking out on stage. But as soon as Freddy is about to sing, his system crashes and he shuts down. He wakes up in his room with a child in his chest compartment named Gregory. It's also revealed that he has no record at the Pizzaplex. Gregory came in here because he wanted to hide from the security guard Vanessa because he doesn't trust her. Freddy then gives Gregory a novelty Fazwatch so he can telecommunicate with Gregory. Freddy then tells Gregory that he can take him to the main exit. Freddy tells Gregory he can crawl through the vents behind his green room. So you crawl through the vents, and you end up at the opposite end of Rockstar Row. But when you go to try and let Freddy out of his room, the door won't open because Gregory doesn't have a photo pass. Freddy tells Gregory that he can find one at a prize counter. I originally didn't know where to find a prize counter. The prize counter isn't in Rockstar Row, so where is it? Well, there's an automatic door at Freddy's end of the hall, and you'll find one right here. You can now open the door to Freddy's room and go down the maintenance tunnels to get to the main entrance. But Freddy ends up thinking that there's something wrong with Gregory and takes him to the first aid station. This is really only here so we can get some exposition that Freddy is on reduced power. So that's why Freddy has worse battery life than the Microsoft Surface Pro. But we end up getting to the end of the maintenance tunnel, and Freddy goes into the recharge station, leaving Gregory to continue on his own. We end up running into Chica eating garbage.
Give me the garbage.
The game then tells you can make noise to create distractions to safely sneak by animatronics. After making it to another maintenance tunnel, you run into Monty, and you gotta run away. However, you do need to take small breaks from sprinting to replenish your stamina. You end up getting to a security office like the one from FNAF 1. Gregory then tells Freddy that he's trapped and Monty's banging on the door. Freddy then gives you access to the security cameras so you can find a way to get to the main entrance. But when you get to the main entrance, the door's shut and you're locked in. But luckily, there are some alternative exits throughout the building. Freddy then tells you to get a complimentary entry ticket and go to the FazPad to upgrade your photo pass. But when you do that, the machine eats your pass. But lucky for you, the machine is really easy to hack. You can find a note bag that gives you a clue to hack the upgrade machine with a magnet. And you can find a Mr. Hippo fridge magnet in Glamrock Gifts on the other side.
Freddy, I found the free gift! It's a crappy Mr. Hippo fridge magnet?
Hey, you watch your language, young man! You know, that's really the only bad word any character in this franchise has ever said. I honestly don't have an issue with the series avoiding the usage of curse words. Maybe this game really is pretty ambitious. Besides that, when you use the magnet on the upgrade machine, it turns the photo pass into a daycare pass. Freddy then tells Gregory that he'll meet him in the daycare. So when we go to the daycare, we slide down the slide into the ball pit, and we meet this guy.
We can finger paint, tell stories, drink fizzy pass until our heads explode, and then stay up all night! There is only one rule! Keep the lights on. On.
This guy is also a bit of a clean freak, so you can knock these things over and go to the desk at the entrance of the daycare to get the security upgrade. This ends up shutting off the power to the daycare, which ends up turning the sun into a moon. Why the hell someone thought this was a suitable design for a children's character is beyond me. You now have to take the flashlight and navigate your way through the play structures to find 5 backup generators to restore power to the daycare. At launch, the wires that go to the generators didn't glow in the dark, making it harder to find them. Is it unrealistic for these cables to be glowing? Yes. Is that bad? No. Because it helps me find the generators more easily. Once you've restored power to the daycare, you can head out. The sun gets mad at you for the lights going out, and makes noise to get the other animatronics' attention, but Freddy's here to save you. Then the power goes out again, and we need to get to a recharging station before Mac Knight's cousin punishes Gregory for staying up late. But then Gregory sees a dancing rabbit lady skipping by, and somehow Freddy doesn't see her.
What was that?
That is a fountain. A fountain is a decorative reservoir used for discharging water.
Not the fountain. You didn't see the dancing rabbit lady right in front of us?
No, I did not.
Freddy, I think your software needs some adjustments. But he also says this.
There is no rabbit at the Mega Pizzaplex. Not anymore.
For those who don't know, the original Freddy's crew was made up of Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie the Bunny, Chica the Chicken, and Foxy the Pirate. The only 2 animatronics that are accounted for here are Freddy and Chica. The other 2, Montgomery Gator and Roxanne Wolf, are totally new to the franchise. There's also a note about Bonnie moving throughout the Pizzaplex, so they probably made a new Bonnie, and he's most likely still somewhere around the Pizzaplex. Besides that, we now have to find a way out of the Pizzaplex, and luckily, we can now enter the main atrium with the new security badge we just got.
Gregory, I have identified 2 possible exit points. The main loading dock is located under the food court on the 1st floor. There is also a fire escape in the 3rd floor prize counter.
So I picked the vent that leads to the loading dock, although now I am pretty curious about the fire escape. But we're going to need a map, which the greeter will give you when you get into the main atrium. Oh god, what the hell is that?
Run! You f***ing run!
We end up running into Chica again and take refuge in another security office. But luckily, we can lure Chica away with pizza. I'm really starting to question the designs of these animatronics here. But how does one make pizza when trapped in a security office? Well, we can take control of a staff bot through the console in the security office to make a pizza and lure Chica away from the office door. To make the pizza, you need to take the dough to each of these machines to apply sauce, cheese, meat, not meat, then bake the pizza under a time limit. Wait, did I just say not meat? You mean synthetic crap? Real talk though. How cool would it be if this part simulated pizza making? Like if you used the staff bot to make pizza like this was Cooking Mama, or something similar to simulate pizza making. I feel like that would have been more tense and pretty fun. But now that Chica is distracted, we can now go to the loading dock. However, somebody changed the permissions and we can't use the controls to escape.
You're gonna need a bigger security clearance.
Chica then comes in and opens a door with her voice box. This will be more important later, and we make our way through the shower room and laundry room while avoiding Chica and more staff bots. But just as we're about to make our way out of the laundry room, a staff bot offers us a map, and then we get confronted by Vanessa. Gregory then wakes up in the Lost and Found, and Vanessa then comes onto the screens and chews out Gregory for sneaking around the Pizzaplex, and after she's done, the rabbit lady asks Gregory a very important question.
Are you having fun yet?
Well, kinda. But now, we have to escape the Lost and Found, because the rabbit lady is going to kill us. Lucky for us, we can escape through the vent, because there's a screwdriver in this room, and we can use it to get out of here. Freddy then tells us his signal is being jammed, and that we should meet him in the Roxy Raceway. And when we get there, Freddy tells us that he missed the hourly recharge, and that we need to get a backstage pass in order to access the lift controls to get into parts and service. Now, if you wanted to exit through the loading dock, it's here where the game gives us our first instance of the old Freddy formula. Because when we collect the next security clearance upgrade, it sounds off an alarm that brings Monty and Roxanne to the doors of the stage control room. If they start banging on the doors, you then hit the button to zap them. While you're doing this, you got to look for Freddy on the monitors and press the button in front of them to open the door. And Freddy will eventually get to the grate underneath the room and he'll catch you when you jump down. I really like this homage to the older games by Scott. It's not as hectic as some of the other games, but it's pretty fun nonetheless. Just wish this part was longer though, because this took around 1:26 seconds. After that, Gregory tells Freddy that he couldn't find any controls for the stage lift. But Gregory did find a program disk. We just need to get it over to the sound booth and run it. The first time I tried getting over to the sound booth, I was incredibly impatient and I tried just sprinting over to the sound booth when I got to the 3rd floor. Not the best idea to do that in a stealth game where you don't have any weapons. We then head back over to the stage and press the button to descend.
Oh no! What time is it?
Crap. So we run to the recharging station before Moon Boy over here can get us. And Freddy sacrifices himself for us. Don't worry, he's not dead, he's just being held in parts and service for now. But before we get into parts and service, we need to upgrade our security clearance once again. And the best way to do that would be the security office at the end of the utility tunnels. Ugh! Damn it, not again! The utility tunnels are full of spare endoskeletons that you need to play red light, green light with to get to the office. They'll activate when you get to a certain spot in the tunnel, and they'll move when you're not looking. But you can hide in these carts to get them off your back.
So this is what you look like inside? Creepy.
I like you better with your shell on.
I agree with you there. But we get the upgrade and we get an absolute army of endoskeletons on the attack. They even form a conga line when they get to a certain point in the utility tunnel. We then make it back to parts and service and see Vanessa grilling Freddy about Gregory. She then goes looking for him once again. We now have to reattach Freddy's head by repeating the pattern of flashing lights, once to carry out the procedure, and the second time to test it. I'm glad that we get to tinker with the animatronics like in Steel Wool's first Five Nights at Freddy's game, but I feel like there was more thought put into the Help Wanted minigames involving parts and service. Besides that, Gregory asks Freddy if there's a way to deal with the other animatronics, to which Freddy mentions that bright lights can make them temporarily malfunction. However, the flashlight won't cut it. You either need a Fazcam or a Fazblaster in order to do it.
You can win a Phaser Blaster in Phaser Blast. Fazcams are often confiscated in Monte Golf, but you will need a party pass to open one of those attractions. Chica normally gives them out for birthdays, Check her green room in Rockstar Row.
This was also where I found a glitch where there's two Vanessas. I don't remember this being a problem in the first version of the game. Since I hate golf in real life, I'm going to get the Faz Blaster over the camera. Before we get into this minigame, one thing that I really liked was when I heard this. That's the door closing sound from FNAF 1. The fact that they decided to use that here is pretty cool. The Fazzer Blast minigame has you taking 3 control points while fending off aliens with your blaster. The blaster can shoot 6 times before it needs to recharge, so you can't just spam fire, like Zero Punctuation would have you believe.
All this annoyance was only until the game's midpoint. Then I unlocked a laser gun with infinite ammo that stuns animatronics in one hit, and instantly they became about as threatening as a great white shark in a gravel pit.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
When you capture a control point, you need to defend it for 28 seconds, which is when the aliens will try to recapture the point you're trying to claim. Do this for all 3 points, and you win. The game will make you return the blaster you already have in exchange for a gold one that does the same thing as the one you had before. There's another vent you can go through and learn the name of the dancing rabbit lady.
Freddy, that rabbit lady's in a secret room above Fazzer Blast. It looks like a hideout. I think her name is Vanny?
Vanny. It is very similar to Vanessa, and also Bunny. That cannot be a coincidence.
I really feel like this is a red herring, and I have a couple of reasons why I feel that way. 1. How would she be able to interrupt herself when chewing out Gregory in Lost and Found? 2. If you listen to both voices, you'll notice that Vanny and Vanessa have different vocal cadences from one another.
Bet you think you're real clever, Gregory. Yeah, I know your name.
Are you having fun yet?
Move! Gotcha!
There you are. See you soon.
And 3, they have different voice actresses. So that's why I believe that these two are not the same person. But since she's right up front and center, and we have no other choice but to talk about her, let's talk about her. Vanny honestly really feels like a complete afterthought here. Not only was Vanny a total afterthought, but she also barely showed up in the first version of the game. After some patches, she does show up more to antagonize you, and when she does, she plays this creepy music and makes your vision go screwy. I like that she shows up more, but I feel like InSound Mind did this way better with Agent Rainbow. Agent Rainbow left calls for you and showed up to antagonize you throughout the game, and it felt satisfying to take him down at the end of the game. But Vanny is not the final boss here, so remember this for later when we get there. I also found another security badge upgrade in the office of Fazzer Blast, along with a Bonnie Bowl pass. This is important because the back room of Bonnie Bowl has the Monty Mystery Mix, which I believe is a drink flavoring of some kind. Apparently it's pizza flavored.
Monty's Mystery Mix. The mystery is the pizza flavoring.
There's also a bag with a note telling employees not to put pizza or pizza-scented items in the trash compactor.
Chica loves pizza.
No, please. No, I don't want to. I don't want to hurt Chica. Final to it. We now have to navigate our way through these junk tunnels underneath the Pizzaplex, and activate 3 generators along the way. But we also have to avoid Chica, because she is not going to give up without a fight. And she now makes these incredibly disturbing glitch noises when she's close to you. To be honest, I feel worse for mutilating Chica than I ever would killing people in The Last of Us Part 2. We eventually get back to Parts and Service to install the new voice box. And the procedure is very similar to the power upgrade we did earlier. with the addition of opening up Freddy and replacing parts instead of reattaching something. I later found out that you could turn off the instruction cards, which I didn't think to do earlier. It is pretty annoying that you have to hold down the button for 4 seconds to exit the tutorial cards. Now, depending on which attraction we picked to use the party pass on, it would dictate which animatronic we decommissioned next. So now we have to decommission Roxanne. I'm starting to look like a misogynist. I should have picked Monty Golf. But while we're on the topic of choices dictating how the game progresses, remember when I brought up the first time this game pays homage to its horror strategy roots? Well, this technically wouldn't be the first time the game does this. If you chose to try and go to the fire escape, you would go through L chips, then an arcade, and eventually get to another security office with a security upgrade. But when you take the security upgrade, it sounds off an alarm, and the office goes into lockdown. Gregory then tells Freddy what happened, and Freddy then gets to work turning off the lockdown. This is pretty much a recreation of Five Nights at Freddy's 1. You need to look outside the office and close the door if Monty or Roxanne are close to the doors, until they get bored and leave. However, you can't leave the doors closed because the doors run on power. After 3 minutes, lockdown then shuts off. If you try to leave through the fire escape, it won't work because Gregory isn't a VIP. We'll get back to this later. You then have to go to the elevator, and the same sort of thing that happened when you tried to escape through the loading dock will happen here. Now on to decommissioning Roxanne. Now that we have Chica's voice box, we can open the door that blocks access to the Roxanne Raceway. So we stroll on over to the unfinished Roxy Raceway, and learn that Gregory isn't tall enough to use the go-kart. But the driver assist bot that's supposed to accommodate Gregory is missing its head. And when we go get a new one from the back of the raceway, the head is badly beaten up. But the only repair station is inside the West Arcade. So yeah, we need to hike all the way to the West Arcade with the dance pass that I found inside the Roxy Raceway. Freddy can't come with because he worries that the same thing that happened to him in the beginning cutscene will happen here. We make it to the back of the West Arcade, but it shuts down as you're about to fix the head. It's just one thing after another with this game, I swear. You need to go back downstairs to the DJ booth and flip the breaker switch to initiate the startup. After you flip that breaker, you then have to flip 3 other breakers around the West Arcade. After you did that, you need to go to the very back of the maintenance hall in the back of the West Arcade and flip the final breaker. After that last breaker is flipped, the DJ will chase after you through the maintenance hall as you run back to the repair station. Safe and sound, let's repair the head. After getting back to the raceway, Gregory is able to drive the go-kart. Gregory bails out of the cart and it hits Roxy in the face. Once again, I don't like doing this. After we effectively blind Roxanne, we have to sneak past her while not making noise, but we also have to make noise in order to get Roxanne to break through these doors. Then, once again, go back to parts and service and repeat the process for replacing parts. After that, Freddy tells us that he has a tough time adjusting to the new eyes. But then the power goes out, and we need to get the hell out of here because Moonboy is roaming the building again. When we get to the main entrance, Gregory wants Freddy to come with, but he can't because the Pizzaplex has recharge stations, and he would shut down within an hour. This is also where the game gives us a choice between staying, leaving, and going after Vanny. If you decide to leave, you get a comic book style cutscene of Gregory leaving, and it looks like he doesn't have a home to go back to, and it looks like Vanny followed him. If you choose to pursue Vanny, Gregory formulates a plan to catch her by surprise, and we get another pre-rendered cutscene of Freddy sacrificing himself. It's honestly horrifying to imagine the staff bots taking apart Freddy with her bare hands. You then run through the Phaser Blast backrooms to make it to Vanny's hideout and hit the button. This plays another comic book style cutscene where Gregory hits the button and orders the staff bots to disassemble Vanny. Jesus Christ! It's been established that Vanny is most likely a human in costume, so Gregory just straight up ordered her to be brutally killed by robots. Gregory then checks on Freddy, looking better than how the disassembly made it look, and he tries to comfort Gregory as he lays there dying. And after the credits, we get a news headline that reads, Fazbear Entertainment closes due to health concerns. Plans to reopen next season. If you decide to stay, Freddy gives you another party pass to open up the attraction that you weren't able to access before. And I think you know what that means. Yeah, Monty's now on the hit list. This is also where the game is made harder for you. Up until now, the game had save stations all around the Pizzaplex that, as the name suggests, allowed you to save the game. They weren't handed out like Halloween candy though. You still needed to play smart, like in the utility tunnels with all the endoskeletons. Before the update, the game would completely disable save stations. So if you wanted to fully explore the Pizzaplex, which many people would very much love to do, then you either had to do everything in one go or exploit a glitch that allowed you to turn back time to 535, which would re-enable the save stations. In the update, they gave you one save station at the atrium entrance. They probably should have tweaked the AI on the staff bots and animatronics instead of doing either of these, but I definitely prefer having one save station instead of having none at all. Now, on to decommissioning Monty. You need to take the party pass over to Monty Golf and go to the security office to get a pass to Chica's Maser Size. And you can also grab the Phaz Cam if you want to. The Phaz Cam works differently from the Phaz Blaster in that you don't have to directly aim at the face of an animatronic. Just pop off a Phaz Cam flash, and the animatronics and staff bots will be stunned for a little bit. However, the Phaz Cam can only be used once before you need to let it recharge. You're probably wondering why you need a Maser Size pass. In order to decommission Monty, you need to enter a vent that will take you to the catwalk above Monty's Gator Golf. And to access the vent, you need a Maser-sized control key underneath the Fazbear Theater in the daycare, in order to change the maze. This maze took me a long time to figure out, but I finally understand how it works. The maze is a 5x5 grid, and these buttons here either shift the rows or columns in the direction indicated by these arrows on the side, which can be changed by flipping the lever to V for vertical or H for horizontal. I drew this to help me figure it out, which helped immensely when figuring out this puzzle. You can go ahead and screenshot this if you want to. After you figure out the maze and get through the vent, you need to hop on this ball turret and shoot at either gator head over here. That will open the gate so you can jump down onto the catwalk and trigger a cutscene of Monty roaring at you and smashing another ball turret. You now need to shoot into the bucket to fill up the splash meter while avoiding Monty trying to eat you. After the splash meter is full, you hit this button to knock over the bucket, which will make Monty fall off the catwalk, which will break him so you can take his claws. And once again, back to parts and service to install these new claws on Freddy. Now we can pretty much go anywhere.
Nothing can stop us now.
Well, except for that. One thing I forgot to mention is that you can view the security clearance level you're currently at by opening up the map. I believe the highest you can go is 7 or 8. But there are also rooms that have a very high security clearance level that you just flat out can't access because there aren't enough upgrades in this building to do that. There was probably going to be more security upgrades, but Steelwool ended up cutting it because the scope of the game ended up becoming more than they expected. Besides that, all these upgrades can do things that help you find collectibles and access parts of the Pizzaplex you couldn't access before in Freddy's original state. Chica's voice box will open doors with microphones, Monty's claws will tear down chained up doors, and Roxanne's eyes will reveal locations of collectibles and these secret retro CDs hidden throughout the Pizzaplex. There are 16 in total, and once you find them all, you need to go back to where Monty started chasing you in the beginning and reveal a hidden door, which is where you can play the CDs. The audio is a recording of a therapist talking to Vanessa, and the therapist brings up something about an encrypted conversation. Vanessa also tries to deflect the conversation by mentioning that she talks with Lewis in the marketing department.
What does it mean?
I also found one gift box that I couldn't get in the daycare because I didn't get it earlier, and since Mr. Sun banned me from the daycare, I can't get it. There's one ending that was considered to be secret, and you get it by entering this door in the Roxy Raceway. There's an elevator that's blocked by doors that require the voice box and the claws to access. This is where the game will autosave. Down here, you can find Fazbear's Family Diner, as well as pieces of a disheveled Freddy statue. And there's a couple of endoskeletons down here. Why do they need so many? You then have to turn on 3 generators and go through the door. Then go down this hole with Freddy, and you'll fall down into this room. And we get to see the man behind the slaughter, William Afton, aka Springtrap. Damn, what's this guy's deal? He just doesn't want to die no matter what happens. This is when the game pays homage to its horror strategy roots one last time. Springtrap will try to take control of Freddy, and to stop him, you need to press a button on the monitor he shows up on, which will flambe his ass, and stop him from taking over Freddy. Doing this is what progresses this section, similar to opening the door for Freddy in the stage control room in that regard. But while you do that, you have to keep Chica out of this office by closing the door until she gets bored and goes away, much like FNAF 1. Monty will try to get you by crawling through the vent, and you need to close the vent until Monty gets bored and turns back around. which is something you can see through the camera on the Fazwatch. For some reason, this doesn't work on Roxanne, so you need to scare her off with Chica's voice box. There's also one character that makes an unexpected return, and that would be Funtime Freddy. There are events where Funtime Freddy will poke his tentacles through, and you need to get rid of him once again with Chica's voice box. I think this is a pretty good homage to the old formula. It's suspenseful and tightly designed. One thing I don't like about this is that Freddy will arbitrarily eject you from his chest compartment. Sometimes it's because Springtrap is trying to possess him, sometimes he needs a recharge, and sometimes he does it for no damn reason at all. But when you flambe Afton one last time, you get another pre-rendered cutscene where Freddy and Gregory are booking it out of the burning building, and Afton gets grabbed by Funtime Freddy. I do like the smooth jazz cover of the opening theme over the credits. And after the credits, we see Gregory and Freddy enjoying the view. There's also a couple of miscellaneous minigames sprinkled here and there to beef up the experience. One that you can access in Monty's Gator Golf is, well, Monty's Gator Golf. There's an arcade cabinet plopped right in the middle of the mini golf course. And you can play some Gator Golf. I hate golf in real life, but this was surprisingly pleasant. You line up your shot, set the strength of the shot, and get your ball to the hole. I noticed that this is a 9-hole course and not the 18 like what's expected in a golf course. There's also a couple of holes that have characters from past Freddy's games as decoration. This is a cool thing to see. I guess since Steel Wool also made Help Wanted, they figured they should probably get more mileage out of the models they already made prior to this game, for some nostalgia in this minigame, which I don't mind. Why did I avoid this? I didn't even need to play this if I didn't want to! Another minigame that I thought was pretty neat was Princess Quest. This is a puzzle game where you get to the end by looking around the castle for keys to open doors and avoid enemies. But you also light torches in order to activate bridges and open doors. Before the patch, you couldn't start the game unless you plugged in a keyboard and pressed enter to start on PS5. I couldn't make that up if I tried. I'm not entirely sure if that was the case on PS4, but it's incredibly weird nonetheless. Other than that, I like the art style, and I do think it's a nice little distraction. But wait, there's more. At the end of the maintenance hall in the West Arcade, you can find Princess Quest 2. Princess Quest 2 adds combat and more complex puzzles, and it ends with you entering a suspiciously familiar room. The fact that they put these two minigames here and added on to the first one in the sequel is pretty admirable, although they probably should have spent more time on the base game. There's also a third Princess Quest, and it's easily the worst out of the three. It retains some of the same mechanics from the first two games, like shadow puzzles, health extensions, and combat, but it also adds FNAF 1 scenery, Foxy, conveyor belts, and bugs. There were times when I took damage when I shouldn't have. There are conveyor belts that you can fall off from and take damage from, but I took damage when I was transitioning from one conveyor to the next at the corners. I got stuck and couldn't move twice, which meant that I had to quit the arcade and start over. Another issue that I found was when I was trekking through the maze, Foxy would get stuck on the walls. It helped me in the long run, but it's still an issue that I'm going to point out. The only way to play this minigame is when you're going for the Vanny ending. And the final problem with this minigame, it crashed when I got to the end. Not only is this the weakest installment, but it's also the least stable. If you want to play this for yourself and you run into a crash, be sure to report it. There's one last minigame that can be found here, but in order to access it, there are a few conditions you need to meet. You need to get the Fazcam from Monty Golf, gain access to the West Arcade, use the Fazcam on the Pirate Foxy, Pirate Freddy, Pirate Bonnie, and Mermaid Chica cutouts, and head to the poster in the theater at the daycare. Now, was all that setup worth it? Well, that's kinda complicated. This last minigame is called Balloon World. You play as Balloon Boy from FNAF 2. The goal of this game upon first glance is to get a high score. You do that by hitting the jump button or by pulling the trigger, but I would stick with the button if I were you. If you rapidly tap the button, you'll shoot upwards with a lot of momentum, but if you lightly tap it, you'll maintain the altitude you are at. If you want to survive, you need to get used to the physics here. You can take 3 hits before you die, but you can collect balloons to get an extra hit, which happens every time you collect 3 of them. The hits you're able to take are represented by the balloons in Balloon Boy's hand. However, there are some balloons that you won't be able to get because they're way too close to an obstacle, and more often than not, you'll lose the balloon and negate the extra hit point you want to get. There's also a flying party hat that gives you 1,000 points. However, just like the balloons, there will be some hats that are too close to an obstacle for you to grab. This game also has a day to night cycle, and when it shifts to night, your obstacles just become bats that you also need to avoid, otherwise you'll take a hit. However, you don't need to be so precise, and it's not totally pixel perfect, because if a bat flies in the direction of your balloons, they won't go out. And when it goes back to daytime, the obstacles will revert back to what they were before.
Road Breach, come on, do you really think they're gonna give a damn about a game where the only goal is to get a high score? Was all that setup really worth it for this?
That's why I said this was the goal upon first glance. There's more to the game than this. Before you start playing, there's a note bag that mentions a glitch in the game. Princess Quest 2 had a glitch that looked like this, and Balloon World has a glitch that looks similar. The real goal is to break the game like it's GTA the Defective Edition on launch day. You need to have multiple balloons to be able to touch the glitch, so you can take a hit, get post-hit invincibility, and clip through the obstacle that has the glitch. After hours of experimentation and observation, I found that the glitch shows up around 11,000 points. This is also where mastering the physics is imperative to see what glitching the game does, because if you don't follow this line after you hit the first glitch, the game will revert back to its normal state, the one time where you don't want that happening. And if you miss the glitch, you have to get another 11,000 points in order to get a second chance. When you eventually go long enough without dying and manage to follow the glitchy trail all the way to the end, the sun grows big and text that reads "Good night" appears on the screen, and the game ends. Well, that was about as worthwhile as the Switch OLED. Remember those 3 endings that I showed you earlier? Well, that was only half of this game's endings. That's right, this game has 6 endings, and I'm going to show you them all. There's an ending that has Gregory leaving through the loading dock after you get a level 7 security clearance. Freddy and Gregory leave the Pizzaplex with the Fazbear van, which I didn't know was a thing. And a child is driving. That's illegal. Freddy ends up shutting down, but Gregory decides to use the van's battery to turn him back on, and they drive off into the sunrise. And after the credits, we get a news headline where Monty is the new star of the show, and Mr. Hippo helps fill out the crew. There's also an ending that involves the fire escape, but remember how I said you can't access the fire escape unless you're a VIP? Well, you need to collect all 6 of the golden plushies, and then you'll be able to access the fire escape. Freddy decides to set the Pizzaplex alight with his candle lighter, which I didn't know he had, and Gregory makes it to the roof where he gets caught by Vanny. But luckily, Freddy is now able to see her, and he charges after her, and they both fall off the roof. Gregory runs downstairs to check on them, and he unmasks Vanny, revealing Vanny as Vanessa? Damn it, I was wrong, it wasn't a red herring. The post-credit scene here has Vanessa alive? What? Was I right about it being a red herring or not? Make up your mind, game! Then it pans down to a headline that reads, Mega Pizzaplex burns down. Recall on flammable Fazbear toys. And the final ending, which is the best possible ending, is gotten by beating Princess Quest 3. When Gregory beats Princess Quest 3, the cabinet will display an error message. Gregory then crawls back through the vent and sees the staff bots are strewn across the ground, which all shut off. We then see Vanny's mask on the ground along with her bow. Gregory then picks up a bag that has Freddy's head in it, and they leave. And it looks like Vanessa wants to join them, and the post-credit scene shows us Gregory, Freddy, and Vanessa enjoying the view with some frozen treats. And with that, I've covered this game head to toe. I've covered pretty much everything this game has to offer in terms of content, at least for right now. So how did the most ambitious game in the franchise turn out like this? Well, after a bit of research on my part, and this Reddit post by Scott himself, we have some answers. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach was announced on August 8th, 2019, and was slated to release the following year. But when Scott went to check in on Steelwoolf's progress, it was discovered that the game's scope was 3 times larger than expected. So Scott made this Reddit post detailing the situation, and essentially said that a 2020 release was not going to be possible. And since 2020 was the year of COVID hysteria, people at Steelwool had to work from home, which most likely didn't help either. Five Nights at Freddy's games tend to have cut content, but Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach may just have the most cut content of the whole series. Like I mentioned earlier, there was going to be more security upgrades, which explains why there are doors with absurdly high security clearance levels, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. There was cut dialogue, an extras menu, several cut minigames, several cut rooms, more variations of the staff bots, and Springtrap was meant to have a larger role in the game as well, even though his story should have ended in Pizzeria Simulator. If you want a comprehensive list of what was taken out, there are a couple of videos on this subject you can look at, as well as the wiki page, both of which you can check out on your own time. And that is why I believe so little of the game's file size was used at launch. Not only is it incredibly depressing that so much had to be cut to get the game shipped on schedule, but the final product ended up suffering because of it. The story doesn't make sense, and a lot of bugs were present at launch. From what I can speculate, it seems that the game was supposed to function more like a Metroidvania. However, not only was there not enough time to implement everything they wanted to implement in this game, but Steelwool only has 59 total employees, so to say that Steelwool was not up to the task would be a vast understatement. But even then, I can't get too mad at anyone here. Sure, the game was a mess at launch, and it's very middling now after the patches, but the fact that Steelwool is doing everything they can to fix it and giving us free DLC is something that I find very commendable, at the very least. And overall, this game is a mixed bag. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach is definitely the most ambitious Freddy's game I've played so far. The game has some good core mechanics that weren't fully realized, and bugs that either crash the game or make you have to reload your save. If the game was delayed to 2022, it would have definitely benefited from more development time. It's great that Steelwool Studios is working to make the game more complete, but I would have definitely waited for as long as I needed to for the game to be finished. As it stands now, Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach is a pretty, ambitious, and overall interesting game that has reverence for what came before it, but it most definitely would have benefited from a delay. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and gotta zoom.